All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series and this month's feature, Inland Marine. A few housekeeping items to discuss before we begin this morning. So for the WebEx, everyone is on mute. If you have a question, there are two chat boxes where you can ask a question. We will be monitoring this during the webinar. However, we will also have a question and answer section at the end of the webinar. So if it's a question that can wait till then, we would prefer it happen at the end of the webinar. If you would like this presentation to be full screen, in the presentation window where you see our current inland marine highlights and the pictures around it, if you go to the top right of that window, there should be two arrows pointing away from each other. If you click on that, it will make this presentation full screen. We are recording this, and we will send along this recording along with the slides of this webinar afterwards, so don't worry about either taking screenshots or jotting notes to the side. We will send this information afterwards. I would give us a week or two to edit and then get and distribute out. Timing the presentation, we're going to try to keep this at 30 to 35 minutes. We know everyone is very, very busy these days. And also, we're going to focus on California-based risk primarily. If interested in other state guidelines, please email us, but we are going to highlight mostly California underwriting guidelines today. Our presenters today, my name is John Pouch. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager with Abram Interstate Insurance Services. I will be coming in briefly during this call, but really this is Summer Jenkins who will be highlighting the products this morning. Summer.
Good morning. Thank you all so much. I look forward to sharing with you a little bit about what we can do.
All right, our agenda for today. We've just done the introduction, obviously, but we're going to cover what is inland marine coverage and who needs it, the origin of the product, and types of policies that we offer and what is currently selling.
So what is inland marine insurance coverage and who needs it? So inland marine sounds like some kind of obscure aquatic type of coverage form, but really it's very simple. It's property coverage for property that moves. There are some, or property that's not adequately covered elsewhere. So there are some items that may not necessarily be on the move, but the inland marine coverage form affords a more broad coverage approach than the standard commercial property coverage form. And who needs it? Pretty much any and every business owner has a need for inland marine. It's typically written for those business owners who have equipment that moves, tools and things like that, or people who are renting equipment on a regular basis or borrowing it, but also for anyone that has a monetary interest in their property functioning. So if you have a business owner that could stand to lose money if a piece of equipment fails, gets lost, stolen, then they probably need inland marine coverage. So the types of policies we offer, we do a lot of course of construction, but we can also do installation floaters, contractors equipment, DIC policies, electronic data processing equipment, transportation, motor truck cargo, which is also a transportation coverage. And then we can do other types of equipment and property coverage for things that are not at a fixed location. So we'll talk a little bit more about that further on. Course of construction. So I don't know what everyone's business focus is that's attending today, but generally speaking, we know the types of exposures that are out there for someone building. So a new building, remodel, building addition, and then we can also include some street and road work. So what is course of construction? It's a property coverage for a building that's under construction, but it also includes building materials and equipment that will become a permanent part of the product or part of the project. And it can also be extended to cover things called soft costs that people may not always consider. So the policy can be purchased by an owner of a job, a general contractor, or any other entity with a financial interest in the project. So sometimes a lender will come to us for, of course, a construction policy because they want to protect their financial interest. So for a lender, they would have an interest in the project if the job were delayed and if the job didn't get completed. So it's completed due to a covered loss, so not just because the guy bailed out. But those are the kinds of things. So what's great about these policies is that they can include things that are left out in the open where most other policies won't. If you have construction materials at a temporary location, and then the soft costs. So soft costs are something that brokers and insurers often forget to include in their policies. So your construction contractor will understand how expensive it is to go get permits. So not just the hard cost of the permit, but how much time. So how much time is lost from someone having to sit down in an office of some municipality, turning in forms, reviewing documents. It's very costly and time consuming. And if a job gets delayed, like we just all experienced the recent flooding that happened out in Texas and Florida. I saw on the news cranes that were left out and whole 2-3-story buildings that had been exposed to all that water damage. The course of construction policy can include those perils. So flood is a covered peril on that policy. And so for our appetite, we have 2 carriers that we use mainly, and that is our Lloyd's AU Gold, and then Travelers. We can use other carriers for larger commercial projects, but primarily we want to see things with, if it's renovation and it's on a frame building, the max TIV is usually $2 million. So I say usually because these policies are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So if you have something, the values are high, the contractor is, a good contractor, solid financials, in good standing, we're always here to make a case for your risk. And we work for you in the fact that we sell your insured to our carrier relationships. And one of the good things about working with us is we're good at selling things. And I personally enjoy talking people into doing things that they may not want to do. So the joisted masonry, masonry non-combustible, those types of building construction, we have much higher limits available in-house. So in-house we can go up to $10 million. On a referral basis we can go up to $50 million. We also are able to write in protection classes 9 and 10. The max TIV in those protection classes is $500,000. We can go up to $2 million on a case-by-case basis. So we've listed some of the optional features. I told you about soft cost, property in transit, an off-site property that's held at a temporary storage location, and earth movement can also be added. So these policies vary in the way that they're written. So it's best to, if you have something that you're not comfortable with or that you think could be missing something, give us a call or use our iChat feature and just say, hey, this is the value of the job. I can't really recommend coverage, but if there's something that stands out that I know would usually be there, I'm happy to tell you that you may want to consider adding something else, another coverage to your application. So next, installation floater. The installation floater is for materials, supplies, machinery, fixtures, and equipment that will become part of the project. These items must be in the care, custody, and control of your insured, but owned by others. So before an air conditioner is installed on the top of a roof, your HVAC guy has care, custody, and control of it. Most likely, it's purchased by him, but is included in the total cost of the project. But once it's installed, it is owned by the owner of the job. So because he has control of it, if you drop it, he has a monetary interest, and so do they. So that is an scenario where an installation floater would be appropriate. There are tons of other scenarios where somebody has a piece of equipment that's going to become a part of somebody else's property. So it's a good idea to consider this coverage for any contractor that has care, custody, and control of property that belongs to someone else. We can include property at temporary locations, on the job site. We can do these on a blanket basis or on a scheduled basis. And the installation coverage is something that I know is oftentimes included on BOP policies, on some carriers that specialize in insuring contractors will include some installation limits on their GL as like a throw-in. The thing that I see most on those policies are small limits. I mean, we even offer them on some of our BOPs. So it might be like a $2,000 limit. But I don't know anywhere that you can buy a commercial HVAC system for $2,000. So this is a really good coverage to purchase and to recommend to your clients. And then writing it on a monoline basis or on a inland marine form gives you more coverage flexibility. So we can include the monetary value that the contractor would lose, job delays, and cover him. You know, keep his relationship good with his client. So we're going to get the claim submitted and get him a new HVAC system to get it installed. Whereas if he didn't have this coverage, he would potentially damage a relationship with his client and incur the expense on his own because he's the one that dropped it. So contractor's equipment is another one that the name is kind of self-explanatory. So any contractor that has equipment, grading equipment, bulldozers, loaders, backhoes, scaffolding, tractors, anything that's not licensed for road use would be covered on a contractor's equipment form. It's also called a floater, and again, that's used because the equipment is on the move, it moves. So the coverage is physical damage coverage at described locations or in transit. So any contractor that has equipment, loading equipment, grading equipment, and they all do. If you have grading contractors, if you have any building, paving contractors, they may not consider physical damage to the equipment. And then we can also include employee tools. So, you know, a small contractor, their tools are their livelihood, and most commercial contractors require their employees to purchase their own tools and to bring their own tools to the job. So if you have your contractor and some tools get stolen while they're on the job site, while the guy is at work, you know, a good employer is going to want to help his guys out or his girls out and make sure that they're able to replace their equipment. So large pieces of equipment we've all seen driving down the road or sitting on a job site with graffiti. You know, they've been stolen. I mean, lots of things happen to these things, and oftentimes people don't consider the fact that someone could steal your giant bulldozer and go joyriding with it. There are conditions on theft, so they do need to be locked. They can't have the keys in them. We and our carrier, the carriers that we represent, want to see that the contractor actually cares about his equipment and his business and is not, you know, being careless. So on these policies, the area that they differ as far as the theft is they will include mysterious disappearances. So on theft coverage on a standard property form, there has to be some evidence that the person broke in and stole whatever they stole. So mysterious disappearance is not covered if you just show up one day and say, oh, hey, all the computers in the office are gone, we don't know what happened to them. That's not going to be covered on a standard policy, whereas on these, with an inland marine form, they will cover mysterious disappearance. And then preservation of property. So the policy, an insurance policy, is meant to indemnify the insured. So indemnification means to make them whole again. With these inland marine policies, they won't only make them whole, but they'll help them get back whole. So if they need help with emergency removal, if they need help to preserve property, the carriers that we work with have response teams, they call them rapid response teams, where they'll dispatch a team to help get their property out of there, protect it, get it stored, and all these things are added benefits of these policies. So we're familiar with special form. Where inland marine doesn't use that terminology, they'll use all risk form. So that means the direct physical loss, and that's the coverage trigger. So if your equipment suffers a direct physical loss, those are going to be covered. We can also do cranes. Generally speaking, in-house, we will not take a crane with a boom that's over 25 feet. On a referral basis, we can consider cranes with booms that are higher than that. And one of the great things about our carriers is that oftentimes we can offer contractors equipment coverage on a replacement cost basis. And I've worked with contractors, I'm going to date myself, but it's been about 18 years now. And I've had clients call really upset because all their equipment got stolen while they're on a job, and the carrier is only going to give them a CV. So that's typically the way it is. But with our carriers, we can offer replacement cost basis for items that are up to 6 years old or less. So our contractor equipment appetite. We don't have a maximum total insured value. So our minimum premium, we have here $500 minimum premium. So as a general rule, that's going to be the minimum. But in some cases, I've seen us do equipment policies for, I think it was like $157. And that was just for small tools, I think one piece of equipment that had a low value. Generally speaking, the scheduled equipment would be for items that are valued over $5,000 per item. But if you have someone that has a whole bunch of equipment that's valued at $1,000 or more, we can also schedule those. Usually I would suggest something like that be on a blanket basis. It just gives them more flexibility. But we can generally write them how you want to write them. So what we like to see is a business owner that cares about their equipment. So they're not going to leave it out in the rain. They maintain their equipment. You know, they have inspections, they have security controls in place at job sites. We know that's not always the case, but if you have a large risk, we definitely want to see that they care about their equipment. Difference in conditions, or DIC. I remember the first time I heard that phrase, I was very confused. And after I saw the policy, I still didn't get it. Now, they call it difference in conditions because it is designed to pick up the difference in conditions between a standard policy, a standard commercial property policy, and then a monoline quake or monoline flood policy. So earthquake and flood, we know, are not covered on a standard commercial property coverage form. And there is nowhere else that you can cover them but on a monoline flood policy, a monoline quake policy, or on a DIC policy. So anyone and everyone needs a DIC policy. We're susceptible to quake, flood, and we're only talking about California, which those are the two main perils needed for the state of California, but we can also do wind and hail if you have a risk that's located outside California and needs that wind and hail coverage. So the great thing about our DIC policies, and this was something that I noticed right after I came here, is that the deductibles are super low. I have not seen an earthquake deductible in the state of California for less than 10%. So deductibles on quake are based on percentages. I've written them here for as low as 2% in quake zones. So that's a huge deal. I mean, if you suffer a loss, even a total loss, you have a $5 million building, a $2 million building, having to pay that 2% deductible, I'm sorry, that 10% deductible can be crippling to a business owner, and most people don't just have that kind of capital, you know, free floating around. So the 2% deductible is a lot more palatable for a business owner. Now, we can do the higher deductible, so we can go up to 15 or 20% on the deductible, but it's a great selling point as an agent to be able to say, hey, I can get you a 2% deductible. The other perils and other items covered on this policy are things like foundations, pilings, and underground pipes. Your standard policy, property policy, excludes foundations, and that's something that a lot of business owners don't consider. Your property policy is covering things from ground level up, generally speaking. There are some endorsements in some cases, and there are things like earthquake sprinkler leakage that you can cover, but that's not true earthquake coverage as the peril. So if the proximate cause is quake, there's a chance that you may not have coverage, even with some of the endorsements that are added to the standard property form. And then we can also add business income. So if you suffer a business income loss as a result of the covered peril, you got coverage there. And, you know, California is a quake zone. We just had a huge flood, so these things are on everybody's mind now. It's just a matter of time before we get hit. It's like the West Coast and the catastrophes are traveling. So you guys would have some great selling points and great options to offer to your clients. And this one, because I'm kind of an insurance nerd, electronic data processing equipment is my favorite out of all of these. So electronic data processing equipment is software, hardware, laptops, and computerized manufacturing equipment. Any computerized equipment that a business owns is going to be eligible for coverage on this form. So you can cover your property and items that are leased by you. And when I say you, I mean you as the insured, or things that are in your care, custody, and control that you're legally liable for. Who uses computers? Everybody uses computers. Business owners provide their employees with cell phones and laptops. We all have servers. We all have software. Everyone, everywhere that owns a business today has computerized equipment. Now, the business owner may feel some level of comfort when they see that, oh, my property policy has some electronic data equipment. Oh, it covers some laptops. Those policies are sublimited. So generally speaking, they're limited to $2,500, and some enhanced and endorsers will provide higher limits, which is great. However, those policies are sublimited. The coverage is just that, it's limited. So there is oftentimes little or no coverage for loss of information, loss of use, and for data recovery. So I don't know about you, but I don't know a forensic computer technician that can go mine all my data and get all my information back if there's a covered peril at my office. I don't know anybody like that. Luckily, I don't own this business, so maybe Ron knows somebody like that. But in the event that your clients don't, they need this policy. And I say that it's my favorite because it's the most broad coverage that I've seen available anywhere as far as your electronic data processing equipment is concerned. So a manufacturer may not think that they have any electronic data processing equipment. The first thing that comes to mind is hardware, software, and that kind of thing. But the standard property policy does not provide coverage for electronic arcing, for an off-site electrical disturbance, if somebody hits a power line or something and causes a surge and breaks their equipment. That's not covered. And it also doesn't cover wear and tear or a breakdown. So if you are, I don't know, a die cutting manufacturing business, you have all these orders, you have to use your CNC machine to cut things to size, to manufacture them, and Monday morning comes in and you turn the thing on and it's not working. You don't know why it's not working. It just doesn't work. And what are you going to do now? You can't afford to buy another one. This is the only policy that's going to step in to help you get new machinery. It's going to buy you a new machine, and it will can also include the business income loss that has resulted as a result of this mechanical breakdown. And the software piece. iPhone is coming out with a new iPhone. And if you have a business that you've owned for a long time, you may just be running on the standard software that you have that's maybe 5 years old. With technology, things are obsolete after 6 months. So you have some kind of a loss, and now you need all new software. How are you going to get new software? You know, this is the kind of thing that's oftentimes not considered, and for the price, it's well worth it to have this coverage. And the great thing about using an inland marine coverage form is that it can be tailored to fit the needs of your business owner. So you can add electronic data processing equipment, or you can add business personal property to an electronic data processing equipment policy. So if you have questions about these, I'm happy to answer it. And I'll say it again, this is the only policy that's going to cover wear and tear or a mysterious reason for the machinery not working anymore. And also the business income potential loss if your equipment doesn't work. So it's huge and it's really cheap. Transportation. So this is going to be for goods shipped in the air, railroads, and in trucks. So we can write these on an annual basis, trip transit basis, the owner's goods, motor truck cargo, and container cargo. So what is it? Again, it's in marine, so this is a specialty coverage form for specifically things that move. So if your business owner is shipping their goods or having goods shipped, like they're importing or exporting, they're being shipped via a common carrier, contract carrier, and then the private carrier would be the insured shipping things on their own. Anyone that is shipping things needs this coverage. And again, sometimes your commercial property policy will include some transportation. Again, the advantages of purchasing on an inland marine form are flexibility. So oftentimes people think because they're shipping UPS or with a common carrier or even with a contract carrier, they have insurance. Yes, UPS does have insurance. Yes, the Postal Service will insure your packages up to a certain amount. The downside is the recovery. So if you have orders that you need to fill as a business owner, they're coming in the mail. The mail never comes, or there's some kind of a loss along the way. They need to recover and replace their equipment immediately. They don't have time to sit on the phone and try to deal with UPS, FedEx, whomever, to try to recover their goods. And the vendor that they bought the stuff from doesn't care if it just up and disappeared. You purchased it, now it's yours, it's on its way. Your trucking guy got in a wreck, and now your, I don't know, your carrots are all over the sidewalk, I mean, all over the freeway. The advantages of having your own policy are that it's just that. Your policy is for your insured to represent them, to protect them, indemnify them, and cover them for their loss of goods. So again, it's actual physical damage coverage. So it would need to be, the shipment would need to suffer some kind of physical loss while in transit. So we can do things called trip transit policies. We can do annual policies. They're pretty flexible. As far as transportation goes, the most commonly purchased ones that we see are motor truck cargo, which is a private carrier hauling other people's goods, and transit policies. So I remember years ago when the Florida Solyndra went under, they were hauling and buying these huge, huge solar panels. And these things were, one panel was worth like 10 mil. They had to have them come from some airport and then put on a truck and then driven all the way from, I want to say San Francisco to Fremont. So what are you going to do with that kind of thing? They don't haul that kind of stuff every day. They don't order that kind of stuff every day. But if you have a $10 million solar panel and the guy gets in a wreck on the freeway, you need to be able to recoup your money and get a new one. So those are the kinds of businesses or kind of scenarios where this kind of coverage would be appropriate. Markets. We have several. So USLI would be an awesome market, and one of the perks or benefits about being aligned with Abram Interstate is that we have the ability to provide phone quotes. So if you have something, if you have a inland marine policy that you need to get quoted, you can give them a call and they can give you a quote over the phone and send it to you the same day. Generally speaking, USLI will do small equipment schedules, and then oddball pieces of equipment, like, what did I see, satellite dishes. They'll do a lot of weird stuff there. But if you're not sure, chat me, call me, and ask. You don't have to do the phone quote method. You can always submit to us directly, and we're happy to help. But we also use Travelers, AmTrust, Liberty Mutual, and then MetLife, where our marine coverage is included on our box. So again, I've explained to you the benefits of having it written on a monoline basis. Sometimes it's appropriate to just give it as a throw-in because your insured is small, their premium's only $500, and they don't want to spend another $500 just to have the best coverage available. So we can accommodate businesses large and small. We are also writing a lot of equipment schedules and weird things. I just quoted one today that was recycling equipment. So this piece of equipment was gigantic. Some big, huge metal piece of equipment that shreds tires. We gave them a 10-cent rate. And we're able to provide them enhanced coverages where nobody else really wanted to write it. So if you need property coverage on something big, small, weird, in between, give us a call. We can probably help. What do we need to provide you a quote? I can't stress enough that a complete submission is so important. Our goal is to get things turned around to you quickly. So having all the information the first time around is huge. Our goal is to help you. We want to help you write business. We want to help you be successful. And we want to make things as easy for you as possible. So each coverage line has its own accord. If you're not sure which one is appropriate, you can ask. We also have some of them available on our website. Email, call, chat. The 125 is the basic app. That's always required on every submission. The 146 is going to be your equipment floater, but the transportation has its own app. The EDP has its own app. So if you're not sure, you can just ask. And then if it's a scheduled loader, we need the schedule. The schedule should include serial numbers, the year, model, and description of what the equipment is. This is important for loss valuation purposes. We don't require pictures for most things, which should make things easy for you as agents. Loss runs will be required to bind if they have had a prior policy. If they've had no losses, then we don't need loss runs to quote. So if they have had losses, don't let that scare you away thinking that we can't write it. Most of our carriers will entertain losses up to $10,000 without us having to get prior approval. So that's a great thing that we can offer you as agents. So why are we different? I've explained to you several things that we can offer, and at Abram Interstate, one of the great things about working with us is our culture. Every week, we all get together and we meet, we discuss things like our culture. It's in all of our heads and all of our hearts, but at the forefront of all of our minds, that we are here to provide insurance products to help your clients get whole in the case of an unexpected event or catastrophe. So the carriers that we align ourselves with are of the same mindset. So they provide quite a few free and additional services when your clients purchase policies with them. The rapid response service, the property preservation services. They will also give benefits for registering your equipment. There's some acronym for a recovery service that's used nationally. So if your contractors are registered with them, they can get pricing breaks from being registered there also. And a lot of our policies, and I know USLI is one carrier that offers consultation services to help your clients get whole, and then also to protect themselves before something happens. So feel free to email and ask if you'd like specific information on any of the services that we offer or additional benefits offered by our carriers, and I'm happy to provide those to you. And at Abram, we also offer our iChat feature. I worked as a broker for several years, and there's only one other company that I ever dealt with that I could get a hold of an underwriter or an account manager instantly online, and they never answered. So with us, you'll get someone usually within 10 seconds. You know, you can chat me, you can ask for me by name, you can ask for anyone else on my team, for Rebecca, Mia. We can answer all your questions instantly, and we're always there. So that's great. I told you about the valuations that we offer. If you ask your current inland marine carriers, whoever you might be using, what valuation they offer, do they offer replacement costs? 9 times out of 10, they'll say no. We do offer replacement costs for new equipment. So that's another added selling point that differentiates us from our competition and from the other products that are offered out there.
Well, thank you, Summer, and thank you to everyone who joined us this morning for our monthly webinar series and this month's feature of Inland Marine. We know that your time is very busy, so we really appreciate that. We hope you gained some more knowledge about our Inland Marine appetite here at Abram Interstate, how to quote, increase underwriting understanding, so if you are working with a client, you know what might fit, what might not. And help you better guide as your client as the expectation how to quote and how to bind. So right now we'd like to open things up to questions that you might have. Again, you are all on mute, so please type any questions that you have into either the chat box or the Q&A section, and we will open it up. Do you offer inland marine coverage for a mill and lathe for a gunsmith manufacturer?
That's a good question. So I know we can do inland marine for mills. for lathe contractors, we can do as well. The gunsmith is an interesting one, so I'm not sure, but I'd love to give it a shot. If you would like to send me the details, you can email them to us, or you can give me a call and we can talk about it. I would like to see an application though, so I can underwrite it and see what the values are. The 125 will be important on that because we need to know what the revenue is for this operation. You know, their address and where they're located and all that as well.
And Amy, you can send that to apps, APPS, @abraminterstate.com.